This one is Gravita Plus, 75 years since independence, time for India to reclaim its rich heritage, by WION.
Hello and welcome to Gravitas Plus. I'm Palki Sharma Upadhyay. The year is 2022 and India is celebrating 75 years of independence. 75 years ago, the British left India and we became free. Or
That's
did
not
we?
a speed.
Would you say we're still colonized in our minds? Would you say our decision-making is 100% free of biases and inferiority complex even? Would you say our choices are still very British or Western? When the British colonized India, they were desperate to legitimize their rule. So they came up with the theory of the white man's burden. They built smokes and mirrors around civilizing India, painted themselves as a superior race. The British were superior, we Indians inferior. Thomas Babington, or Lord Macaulay as you would know him today, brought English education to India. His purpose was to hammer in the inferiority complex. They introduced an education system that hailed the British as superior in science, arts, even morals. On the 2nd of February, 1835, Macaulay circulated his Minute on Education. He declared, a single shelf of a good European library was worth the whole native literature of India and Arabia.
That's a crazy thing to say. Damn.
Fact check. The Mahabharata is lengthier than Homer's Iliad and Odyssey combined. The Mahabharata has more than 200,000 lines. Iliad and Odyssey have 30,000 lines each. The Ramayana too is 3 times as large as Iliad. Anyhow, Macaulay did not hesitate in selling lies or spelling out his design. He said British education was meant to create a class of persons, Indian in blood and color, but English in taste, in opinions, in morals, and in intellect. The idea was to make the West aspirational. Do you think Macaulay was successful?
I guess they went like, from what I know of different colonization, right? And as always, I shit on the British, but, you know, I know France has done it a lot. I mean, I definitely acknowledge that, obviously. We've done a lot of fucked up stuff, no doubt, as well. But yeah, like, different colonizations, like, sometimes the British, they just wanted the resources, it seems like, yeah? And sometimes, like, with India, it seems like they wanted to... it's not just for the resources of the country, it's also, like, this weird thing of trying to, like, turn the people into, like, a slave race that just accepts that, you know, well, accepts that basically, like, true generation of, like, indoctrination, maybe, just, you know, like, totally change their identity to be like that, right? I think we had watched video before, but, like, some of the other country that the British colonized, and they were, like, less hands-on to an extent. You know, they were more there for the resource, and they didn't really care about, like, changing the population to be a certain way or something. It's interesting.
I think he was. We're speaking in their language after all. Look around you. Many educated Indians today are very English in their taste. Some have become indifferent to their own culture. Do you remember when Coldplay performed in India? That concert was sold out. Do you remember when Justin Bieber played in India? Newspapers said the madness was unprecedented.
Yeah, but it's not.
But year after year, Indian classical singers performed to empty halls.
Okay, but let's just be honest. As in every country, you know, like, the very popular pop artists are the ones selling out stadium, and most country, it'd be very rare to see the classical music style to be super popular. I don't know. I feel like that's kind of like that everywhere, no? And I don't think there's much to do about it. That's just how it is, right? I mean, it'd be a good thing if, like, the classical music style don't die, but there's no way they'd ever be as popular as, like, the new thing.
Indian classical dancers get no audience. Kathak veteran Shobna Narayan once said that the Indian audience seems to have a closed mind to Kathak. But salsa or flamenco, those we would love to pick up, because these dances are seen as aspirational. And nothing wrong in learning another dance form. It only enriches you, but not at the cost of denigrating your own. Do you know Kathak was first recorded in the 4th century BC? I don't know any Western dance form that goes back so far or has evolved as much. You know what else is aspirational? The Louvre in Paris. One photo of it on our Instagram and we have arrived. But India's National Gallery of Modern Art, which has one of the richest collections of contemporary arts, gets just 30,000 visitors a year. The Louvre in Paris gets 2.5 million visitors every year.
Yeah, but we stole a lot. Like, you know, the Louvre is great because there's a lot of stuff from a lot of different places because, you know, a lot of it shouldn't be there, right? Same thing with the London Museum, right? Obviously, maybe like this NGMA in New Delhi, you know, they only have like cultural stuff from India itself. So maybe there's a little bit less interest because of that, right? They don't have stuff from all over the world to check out. That might be the explanation.
Tate in London has an annual footfall of 4 million. What explains this gap? Is it India's disinterest in everything Indian or the obsession with everything Western? Do we still blame Macaulay for this? Or our failure to invest in our culture? The reasons are multiple and the result is clear. Today, an Indian dreams of becoming Western, aping the West, or living the Western lifestyle. For an Indian, the West has become synonymous with advancement and modern living. But these are two different things, Western and modern. If only we could cure this 75-year-old colonial hangover, if only we could look through what Macaulay wanted us to learn, if only we could reconnect with our heritage, we would realize that it's us, the Indians, who've always been ahead of our times. Ancient India was aspirational. Ancient India was advanced. Meet Bodhayan. He lived in 800 BC. He calculated what the world knows today as the Pythagoras theorem.
Oh,
Pythagoras lived in 570 BC in Greece. Most likely he picked the theorem from the Hindu sages he studied under. Have you heard of the Fibonacci number sequence? This is how it looks. Every number is the sum of the two preceding numbers. The world credits Italian mathematician Fibonacci for this sequence. But an Indian sage named Hemchandra wrote it long before Fibonacci. And Hemchandra was not the first, by the way. An Indian mathematician named Gopala studied these numbers long before Hemchandra or Fibonacci. Eurocentric textbooks will not tell you this. Macaulay.
UNESCO has recently added an ancient Indian text, Bhagavad Gita. I feel like I've heard that before. And Natya Shastra to its Memory of the World Register, recognizing their global cultural significance. That's cool. That's cool.
They would never want you to know this. An Indian invented zero. An Indian taught the world how to calculate the value of pi. An Indian invented the decimal system or the binary digits or the heliocentric theory about the solar system. It was Aryabhat who first proposed that the Earth is round, it rotates on its axis and revolves around the sun. Today we learn about Copernicus. We wear T-shirts and sweatshirts of NASA. But
it's funny because I'm super interested being in that. I was literally about to talk about the whole thing about, you know, the recent anime Chikyu no Undo Tsuite, which is an anime literally about that. Some of the people, you know, basically who have dedicated their life to the theory of heliocentrism, you know, the research of it and trying to prove it. But most of them are forgotten to history because the person that people eventually remember is the one that, you know, like, will basically use all the knowledge from all the people before them to reach the actual conclusion and the actual proof. And then their name will be remembered compared to like all of the people that basically were the stepping stone to lead to that. So I guess that's a good example, right? I mean, that's a good example. That show is definitely, I recommend it. It's a great anime about that subject. Like, you know, for so many of the big discovery of humanity, we might attribute it to one person, but in reality, it's probably like thousands of different researchers from over the world over the years that have, you know, sometimes gotten to the wrong conclusion or made progress, but their names, you know, is usually like they won't be either remembered or not even if they're remembered, it's like so small compared to the final person who like not only published the work but just reached the final conclusion on the back of everybody else to an extent. I guess that's kind of a classic. And I'm not saying it's especially a bad thing. Like, in a sense, when you think about it, you know, for example, like heliocentrism, there was probably like hundreds of people whose name would be worth it to remember for their contribution to the theory, but you can't expect anyone to do that, right? I think for most of us, it's easier to remember one name, but also it would be good for people to understand that concept, and that show really taught me that concept of like, even though we usually remember one name associated with like with a discovery, there's actually like probably like hundreds, thousands of people who, you know, in a sense might be as important to get that discovery, but also, yeah, I guess I'm not gonna remember thousands of names of people who worked on the theory of heliocentrism, right? That's my thoughts about all this, what I can say.
1,000 years before Copernicus, Aryabhat determined the diameter of the Earth. He also determined the diameter of the moon. The culture of science in India dates back 5,000 years. Did you know the modern English brick bonding was inspired by Indus cities? Today we look westward at the very mention of plastic surgery, but it was India that taught plastic surgery to the world. Meet
Really?
Sushruta. He was an ancient Indian physician. He lived around 800 BC in the kingdom of Kashi.
Okay.
Sushruta Samhita is the earliest known document to give a detailed account of rhinoplasty. It also describes more than 300 different operations, some 121 surgical instruments. A lot of them are very similar to modern-day surgical tools. Sushruta would use herbs before an operation to prevent sepsis. He would also carry out cataract removal. This was in 800 BCE. Today,
that's insane. That's insane. Damn. And I had no idea plastic surgery was that old. I'm sure there was always some form of plastic surgery, right? I wonder, like, what extent she means plastic surgery? Yeah. Obviously, like, the modern technique are very different, right? Like, the one developed at the time of World War I, like, the one of taking, you know, like, butt tissues and flesh and trying to grow it on someone's face to then replace something like, you know, some part of their face. That's a very different and more modern technique. But yeah, I wonder what the plastic surgery at the time was like.
we have lost out on this rich legacy because of our indifference to Indian heritage. And the West has time and again played it to its advantage. In the early 1990s, two American researchers staked a claim to the US Patent and Trademark Office. They said they discovered the healing properties of turmeric or haldi. These researchers were given the patent in 1995. Now, here's what's funny. Indian house.
I know where she's going with this. I mean, isn't it like that all the time with patents? It's not about who actually did it, it's about who registered it first or something.
Households have been using turmeric paste on wounds for ages, but somehow we never filed a patent. Around the same time, a US company applied for another patent. This was about using neem as a pesticide, again, something Indian farmers have known for ages. This patent too was granted. Do you think there is a lesson in all of these stories? I would say there is. The world we live in will always have false claims. History will always be Eurocentric. There will always be sharks stealing ideas and innovations. But if we don't reconnect with our rich heritage, we would continue to be fooled by Macaulay and company. We will continue to believe that Indians are inferior. The world won't remind you that the industrial...
But is that actually a thing? Like, do Indians actually believe they're inferior? Like, is that actually a thing now, 75 years after the independence and all that? Like, is that actually a thing?
The revolution that started in the West was powered by the cotton gin. And that the machine was a revolution that started...
I've seen a thing like that. I remember once in school, they took us to like some kind of old-style workshop where they were showing us like old classic machine like this.
In the West was powered by the cotton gin. And that the machine was invented in India. India also had the earliest known dock. It was at Lothal in Gujarat.
Dock.
Steel was made in India as early as 500 BC. It is possible that Indian scientist Kannad devised the atomic theory centuries before John Dalton was even born. India was the first to smelt zinc by distillation. The first seamless celestial globe was made in Kashmir. It was by Ali Kashmiri ibn Luqman. And despite all of these advancements, India never went on an offensive. India never invaded another country. We did not have crusades. Our ancestors not just taught the world science, mathematics, and astronomy, we also exemplified tolerance. This is the birthplace of four religions: Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism. It is hard to find a heritage this rich. 75 years ago, we got the chance to reclaim this very heritage. But have we done justice to it? 75 years ago, Mahatma Gandhi led a freedom movement so that you and I could claim what is rightfully ours. You know, the great Indian heritage. But 75 years on, our minds may still not be free, and our spirit of innovation not completely unleashed. Look at the number of patents India filed in 2020 and compare this to the rest of the world.
Damn.
This is
crazy. That's crazy. China, what the fuck are you doing? 1.4. Okay. They're going kind of crazy. Okay. I wonder, like, I mean, they're a massive country, sure, but damn, they must be filing patents for absolutely everything. But I'm guessing that's because, from what I know, China, they have very different copyright laws and stuff like that. So, you know, it's a lot more lax, I guess. And so they can literally more or less steal patents that are already a thing, which, those patents might already also be stolen for someone else. But yeah, like, I remember this from a video about gaming, where like in China, they often literally just copy some game, and there's no problem because the copyright law in China are very different. And when I say copy, it's not like just copy it by remaking it in your own engine or something. Sometimes they just take another game and kind of like reverse engine it, I think is the word maybe. Just change a little bit from the code and stuff like that, and then they can just actually go ahead with it and, like claim it as their own. So I'm guessing maybe the patent stuff is like that because the numbers here is absolutely insane. Yeah, absolutely insane. But frankly, like patents are like, it's one of those things where like I understand the concept, I understand in many cases why they can be a good thing and all that, but again, my knowledge is always limited to what I'm into. So games, for example, it's been proven many times that like patents are kind of bullshit, right? Like it's just the world would be a better place if a lot of stuff that are patented weren't. Some words can be patented. For example, I remember for like the game No Man's Sky, there was like Sky Television, a British company, was trying to like force through legal action the game developer to change the name because they own the word Sky, which is insane, right? And yet that's the thing. Same thing with like stuff like specific game mechanic, which it shouldn't be a thing. For example, like the Nemesis system from the Lord of the Rings game, Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor, which is a system of like randomized enemies that can remember you, that can evolve depending on how they fought you, if you killed them, what they did to you. It's a very cool, AI game system, but it was patented. And so in the last 10 years, only 2 games were made with it. And no one else can make a game like that because of patent. So again, I think patents can make sense sometimes, but they're also very often bullshit, right? It's literally like something that might be great for everybody, but I'm just gonna take it all for myself and, patent it so no one else can use it. Not the majority, but yes, some Indians are still in colonial hangover. They think British colonialism was the best thing to happen with India as it modernized India, which wasn't the case in reality. I mean, I guess it's only been 70 years, so there's still a lot of people who were alive during that time, some who were born during that time, which I guess they would be born during the British rule and be indoctrinated, right? So I guess I can understand. And then they would pass on that to their children. So yeah, I guess I understand that some people might still think like that. I guess maybe a couple more decades and, more like education on the truth of things. And everybody might be more adjusted to the actual reality of things. Fair enough.
It's just one parameter, but it tells you the story. Freedom is supposed to nourish critical thinking. Freedom is about being proud of your culture, your color, your customs. So let's stop looking westwards. Let's look inwards. We've been free for 75 years. It's time we reclaimed our lost glory. It's time we reconnected with our heritage and got back to being what we've always been, far, far ahead of the times.
And literally what I was saying in the other video earlier, like, I was thinking about earlier in that video about the last 75 years in India and the speed of development of every field, I guess. And yeah, again, if the pace keeps up to an extent, then she's right about what she said. It is possible India might once again become like the leading figure in like different field, I guess. That would definitely not be crazy. So fair enough. Very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. All I can say is very interesting. Great video. Great video. Okay, here's the link. Very good video. I am learning a lot today. I will sleep less dumb tonight. Let's go.